My name is Christina Garcia-Carreras. I am the youngest of 11, formerly known as Peak. That's my maiden name.
My name is Michael Garcia-Carreras. I'm the youngest of 4 children, born here in Atlanta, Georgia. My parents came from Cuba in the 60s, and they met here in Atlanta and got married at Christ the King Cathedral, which is where Christina and I ended up getting married too.
My oldest sister is a Carmelite nun, and so she has a beautiful vocation. And then I have 2 brothers, 2 out of my 3 brothers that are priests. One, he got diagnosed with leukemia right when he was becoming a deacon, and so his whole priesthood was filled with suffering. And so it was just immense suffering that he endured during his priesthood. I was in physical therapy school, and I was in my 3rd year, and I did wedding photography on the side. And I was at a wedding, and so I was like dancing while I was taking pictures, and I saw his parents, and they recognized me because they're from like same church circles. And they were like, "Oh, well, are you dating anybody?" And, "Oh, well, we have a son." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And then 3 months later, I played co-ed soccer too. And so I was playing on a team, and one of my guy friends was like, "Oh, you should meet this guy. Like, he's great. He plays on my men's league. He said he met your parents at a wedding, and he's been trying to find you for 3 months." And I was like, "Oh, that guy." So the cool part was then I was like, "Okay, let's meet." And my friend was like, "Oh, he said he can't come because he's going to some all-night adoration thing." And I was like, "Oh, well." I then went to the all-night adoration thing. He didn't know that I was coming, but I immediately, when I came into the church, I saw the back of him kneeling, and there was a lot of people there, but it's like I knew him. And so then the next week, I saw him playing soccer. And sure enough, when I showed up, he's like doing all these skills and scoring goals and just like totally owning the game. And I was like, and I recognized him as the guy from church. So it's like I knew that was him again. And we met, and then the first question was like, "Oh, where do you go to church?" You know, and then we started talking about that. And then the next day, not planned, but the next day we showed up at church together.
And we just talked and talked and talked. And it was really funny too, because soon before I met her, well, the year prior I was in a relationship, and my mom didn't approve of the girl. No one in the family did. So they got me a book called The ABCs for Finding a Good Catholic Wife. And I read that book, and it really did change my life. It put in perspective what I needed to be looking for at that stage of my life. You know, what was important in a good wife. I wanted children raised in the faith. I wanted a wife who could encourage us to go to confession, to go to Mass. You know, she encompassed all the qualities of this book. Going forward, that these were things that I wanted to be a part of for the rest of my life.
When he asked me to marry him, we went to adoration at the church, the Christ the King, which is where we ended up getting married, and where we first saw each other at church. And we stopped at the adoration chapel there, and then he leaned over and pulled over a ring and asked me to marry him in the adoration chapel. And so that was awesome because it was in front of Jesus. And then during our engaged encounter, we both had understanding as to how many kids we wanted, because we both came from pro-life families. And we both had a similar upbringing. We were just open to whatever God's plan was. And so so then we got pregnant right before our 2nd anniversary. Before we even got married, before we started dating, I had discerned becoming a nun, and then did a rosary devotion. Ended up going a different way because I felt like God was leading me a different way, and was led back to okay, you know, you're called to maybe getting married. So I knew that I wanted somebody who was going to be like very faith-filled. Like that was huge to me. He's very devoted. He will lead them through prayers. He loves like our first Saturday devotion, very much leading the rosary, which I think is really important and helpful, especially for like the kids to see that the dad is involved in that. But that he also has a lot of fun playing and exercising and leading with the kids, especially the boys. Our oldest is named Mariana Rose. We're so thankful. I prayed for a girl for my oldest child because I knew that I would need help. And she is so great. She's very creative, so she has a very gift of being very artistic and also designing. We like to think that maybe she'll be like an architect or something that uses her gift of art and design. She's such a great kind of second mother, even so much that Andre, our youngest, will ask for her many times over me.
It can be a lot of responsibility, but otherwise it's lots of fun. We like to climb trees and just hanging out together. Prayer helps me to forgive and love by just knowing that we're all human and that God has a reason for everything and that I can learn from my experiences and just show kindness to everyone. My favorite saint is Saint Zélie, Saint Therese of Lisieux's mom. She showed a lot of perseverance and helped a lot around the house a lot, especially like with all the kids. And she showed bravery through hard times, and it's nice to always know that she's there.
Faustina, she's 11. Faustina has the most incredible soul. She gives cards and baked goods to the neighbors, seeing someone's need and just giving of herself. Very humble, very sweet soul. Also, athletically inclined. They like to do triathlons and play soccer. And then also, we have a piano now because of her.
Yes, she really wanted a piano.
She likes to play music.
In her prayer life, they did a hybrid homeschool, and she would lead another girl in praying the rosary.
I felt God's love for me when I was in adoration because it just felt like He was pouring down graces. My favorite prayer is probably the Hail Mary because it's really nice to know that Mary's there.
Gabriela was the third. She's in heaven. And yeah, she was born 2 years after Faustina. And she died, she was stillborn. And so that was a big shift in our life.
Damien, he's a lot of fun, very energetic, very athletic, very talented with engineering, and you can just see the wheels turning. He asks a lot of really deep questions on how things work, and it's really exciting to see him grow and now lead his little brothers kind of in the ways of the family.
Damien told my brother, Father Kevin, that he wants to be a priest. So we'll see. We'll see what that happens.
I think I feel closest to Jesus when I'm at church.
Leo's our second boy, and he is 4. He is very much independent. He is friends with everybody. He will easily walk into people's houses and like make friends with anybody and, I have a friend, and hey friend, and that's their name is friend. And he loves to be outside all day. If you're missing Leo, go outside. He's outside playing. Andre, he is our youngest right now. He's 2 years old. And he is super sweet too. He will give kisses, all the hugs. And I love it because he was born 6 months before my mom had her stroke. And so after my mom had her stroke, she moved in with us. And so he was like a couple months old, but I think they formed a connection. because it was like we were trying to get my mom to walk and him to walk at the same time. And so now whenever he sees my mom, he will just go up and like give her hugs and kisses and just make her laugh and smile.
He's super sweet and he's super like helpful.
Yes.
I mean, even at 2, he'll just run. He hears the dishwasher open, he'll run to it and start unloading it. It's like, wow. Raising multiple kids is challenging at times, but it's all joyful. It's not really a burdensome challenge, it's just a joyful challenge. We all adapt and we all figure out what's going to be best for everybody. And just keeping Christ in the center helps us stay focused. It's not a good place to be selfish amongst a family of 7 like this. I find that very, very beneficial for their upbringing to experience the constant giving. You know, everybody's needs are important, and we can adapt, and we can sacrifice, and it's a joyful sacrifice. But yeah, there's been challenges too. When we lost our 3rd daughter, Gabriella, that was definitely challenging, and I was definitely looking forward to having, 3 girls. You start to plan and you start to dream. But it was a great experience to endure that suffering and to share it with them. And on the same day, having a nephew pass away as well at birth. So we had a joint funeral. People estimate there was 1,000 people there. So that gave us a really good chance to just live out the faith. And I know there were a number of people there in that church that day that said they hadn't been in church in a long time. Suffering through Gabriella's passing was definitely suffering. I made a promise to Gabriella. I just promised her, that this experience, that her life, wouldn't be in vain, and that any chance that I had to rescue a child, would be in her name. That's a big part of who we are.
Gabriella was a huge pivoting point for us.
With the loss of Gabriella, we were able to, overcome that over time, and I think that, we're better for it. But we're just very blessed, even to have experienced her in our lives in the way we did. And then I remember the girls coming into the hospital room and saying, why isn't she crying? So they got to experience that grief too at an early age.
I remember Mariana saying, a couple days after we had lost her, and she was like, "Mommy, did you see him?" And I was like, "What do you mean? Did I see him?" She's like, "Did you see him when he came to take Gabriella?" And I was like, "No, I didn't see him." But she knew to look for him, and to look for that and to see his hands in that. And that's awesome, to know that she was a gift, and now she's going back to heaven, and now she's looking after us. And yes, we pray to her to help us. Give thanks for every kick you feel, every moment that you have being pregnant right now, because this is a gift. And then the ones who had gone through loss, and even still today, when I hear about it, people will connect them to us to kind of be like a sounding board, someone that we can hear their story and be empathetic to and say, oh yeah, our stories are similar, but they're different, and you've been through a lot, and to be that shoulder and to be that vessel of Christ's love to them.
We share the faith with our children in a lot of different ways. We do go to Mass regularly. So yeah, through the sacraments, through praying the rosary, praying the chaplet of Divine Mercy together. We're given an action Bible by their uncle, Father Kevin, and we have read that thing through so many times, and that becomes our nightly, ritual. They love it. And on top of having images around the house and then naming them after saints, we encourage them to invoke their namesakes as often as they can, and we pray to them as a family.
My water broke when we were at church. It was a Sunday at 10 a.m. Mass. My water broke right at the end of Mass, which was great. So we waited for everyone to leave. I left, and then we went to the hospital, and nothing was happening. And so I started like running laps in the hospital and still nothing. And the ladies are like, you need to just rest. And I was like, I want this baby. Like, I don't want to have a C-section. And so then I just was like, okay, I'm going to rest. And we had our liturgy of the hours. That was another thing that we like to pray a lot during our dating life. And so I had that open and I was just praying it. And I had this image of John Paul II and his prayer. And it's like, be not afraid. And it's like, okay, be not afraid. Be not afraid. That's my mantra. Be not afraid, And the next morning, contractions started, and I was like, okay, be not afraid. It's fine. Like, we're in the time frame. And then finally she was born, and it was on the feast day of John Paul II. And so we were like, of course she's Faustina. Like, because John Paul had a huge devotion. John Paul II had a huge devotion to St. Faustina. And so it was like, this is just so great. I started reading a book called The Little Way to Homeschooling. And it's kind of like with St. Therese in mind, just simplicity and listening to God's calling. And when you just think about those two things, like, what is simple, right? God wants things to be simple. The devil wants to make it chaotic and crazy and make us not have clear focus, right? And God has a calling for each of us, a purpose for each of us. And so I love that, because then when I get worried about not doing all the things perfect, it's like, you know what? No. Like, you're doing what you actually like to do. And maybe that's what you're going to do in life because you're called to that and you like that. And you might not be great at this over there, and that's okay. We'll do a little bit of it, but let's spend time doing what you're naturally good at, and let's thrive that, and let's foster that, so that way when you get done, you know what you're going to do in life. Before, when we were even dating, we started praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet. Like, every day we're going to pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet together. And then, when we had our first child, we found out quickly that praying was a great way to put them to sleep. And so we would go up into their room or rock in the rocking chair and just pray the rosary, sing the Divine Mercy Chaplet, sing songs from church, a lot of Latin songs, and it would just drift them off to sleep. And it was also soothing to us too, just kind of that grounding, like, okay, Mary's with us, it's quiet, it's calm, and it's fruitful. So I think that has been a ripple effect. And now we pray the rosary, and we lead the rosary at our church. And I lead the meditations, and then the girls would lead a decade, and then the next one would come. And I think it's just been so great to watch them grow.
There was a time in my life when I was kind of just struggling in life, trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And so I went up into the church and I went to pray, and I found a flyer for the Divine Mercy, and I had never heard it. So I went into the church and I read through it and prayed it, and I was like, it all came out, It was really a really moving moment for me. And so I just adopted it. I took it with me. I kept a rosary in my pocket at all times after that, just to pray the Divine Mercy. And I had really found that the closing prayer really spoke to me. And so I memorized it. Fast forward to meeting Christina and her dad. All three of us prayed the Divine Mercy together. And we got to the end of it, and I just went on with the closing prayer because I'd memorized it at that point. And I could see him and kind of Christina like, wow, he knows the closing prayer? Like, yeah, this is my jam, So that was neat. I mean, we shared that kind of intimately, I think, just from the beginning.
That's what kind of kicked it off.
I think that's what kind of kicked it off.
I think that might have been what kicked it off, to where we were like, okay, let's do this every day. Like, you know it, I know it, let's do this.
Yeah.
Divine Mercy was like really big in our wedding too. Even our invitation to our marriage, like to our wedding ceremony, had like, for 9 days before, could you guys pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet? Here's the Divine Mercy Chaplet, like, pray it for us. We both played soccer in college. We both grew up just being active. And so then when we met over the soccer field, that was like a common thing for us. And Hugh, you trained triathletes. You did triathlons. You did an Ironman before we met.
Yep.
And so then when we met, we started doing, or when we got married, we started doing triathlons together. And so taking our kids, when we had kids, taking them early. We love being outside. We owned a CrossFit gym for 3 years. And so we actually opened that the same month that Faustina was born. And so she grew up there, Mariana grew up and worked out with us, and we've done a couple of triathlons, family triathlons together. It's really awesome to see them enjoy it. I think it's cool too, because now that when we closed our gym, then I started working out at home a lot more. And I invite neighbors to come, and they're like, every day I open the garage door, they're like, it's gonna be so much fun. Who can we play with? Yeah. So not only they're working out and staying active, but also people coming.
And it's usually young women who are bringing their kids. So they get play partners out of it.
Yeah. I think initially, having one was a challenge, and that I had a C-section and I actually had an infection for like 4 months that I didn't know about, but it was really painful. And so I thought, oh my gosh, I literally had the thought, like, I can't have any more kids. This is so painful. I cannot do this anymore. But then I had the next one, and that was a vaginal birth, and I recovered so much better. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe. I went back to working out pretty quickly, and I was like, okay. But then you had 2 years apart, and that was hard. That was another adjustment. And then so like each kid, as they get older, they're more capable. And if you can help raise them to see the need, right, then they can be good helpers. Like Andre will call for Mariana. And so like last night, I was trying to put him to bed, and he was not falling asleep. We prayed the rosary. I started praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet. I'm like, anything, Lord, come on. And he was not falling asleep because he had a long nap late. And then he's like, I want May. I want May. So May comes in, and I'm like, thanks, May. She lays down with him. I left. And it was like, thank you. So it's very helpful in that sense. Damien will do reading with Daddy. When Daddy comes, you guys are going to sit and read together, and then he'll do that really well. We did a hybrid homeschool the past few years. This is our first year doing straight homeschool with everybody. Hybrid homeschool is where they go 2 days a week to school, and it's a Catholic-based school, St. John Bosco, and they have a lesson plan. They get the teachers. They like to do a lot of the crafts there and a lot of the experiments, so it's like I don't have to have all those things at home. My oldest one wants to go back to the hybrid. She misses her friends too, which is nice to have like faithful friends. And then they also have sports there, so they can play soccer at school.
They're all different,
Yeah.
and they receive discipline and correction in different ways. And
I used to think, Leo will only respond to a spanking. Like, that's the only thing left. I must just spank him. And then he got a little bit older, and we started doing rewards. And it was like, you get a sticker for first-time listener. And he's like, oh, yay.
Yeah, it was life-changing.
All of a sudden, he's a great listener.
Yeah.
And so even now I can be like, you're such a great listener, aren't you? He's like, yeah. I think each kid we're learning.
Yeah, and they're constantly changing through the seasons, so we have to adapt.
Yeah.
I think we have a lot of joy in the family, and I think it's all Christina's fault.
Miss Chaos? No, I don't know why.
No, it's just that joyful nature that you have. I think that you provides a lot of opportunity to be contemplative, to be sorrowful, but also to be joyful. And in the end, I think the foundation of the faith is joy. So just by living the faith, I think we share that with the kids, and they in turn reflect it back to us.
Choosing joy and choosing to be thankful and grateful is what I try to then mimic with the kids. It's like, okay, hey, how can we see this in a different light? Because there's something around us that we can always be grateful for. And then just the natural moments of joy is just seeing them interact and play and be so thankful that they have playmates. They have built-in playmates that I had growing up. We purposely do not have a carpet in this room. We don't have white things in this room because sometimes they would ride their little bikes around here or their scooters because I needed them to be active. I mean, I grew up playing soccer in the hallway.
I grew up playing soccer in the kitchen. We were just raised on soccer in the house, so yeah, they absolutely carry that tradition on. We are the Garcia-Carreras family.
And we are joyfully